Chair sees a quorum and calls this meeting of the Whitestown Town Council to order. If we could, if y'all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. If Glenn, are you ready?
I am ready.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
All right, thank you, Glenn. Thank you, everyone. Next, we'll have a roll call of members.
Councilman Worrell,
Here.
Councilman Miller,
Present.
Councilman Baum,
Howdy.
Councilman Austin,
Present.
Councilman Wishick.
Here.
All right, thank you, everyone. For those of you that have been with us before, this meeting is going to run a little bit differently. We have a statutory obligation that the only substantive item on our agenda can be a public hearing on this particular item, the ordinance to establish a food and beverage tax in the town of Whitestown. With that, there will not be a motion to approve the agenda, as the agenda is only what it can be. With that, we'll move to our only item of business, where I will open the public hearing at 7:06 p.m. With that, if anyone would like to speak, please let Nathan know so that he can open up your mic so that you can speak on this topic. We encourage you to limit your comments to 3 to 5 minutes, but we want to make sure that everyone has their due time. So please be cognizant of your other speakers in your comments and your timing, but don't feel that you're not going to be allowed to have the ability to say your comments. What I want to start with is that, as many of you know, this was something that is a part of an economic development package for the recent development that has been brought to us, that we have signed an MOU with and announced recently in our partnership with Homefield, $135 million development, which will be a multi-sport complex for youth sports, including commercial and residential. In addition, there will be a $15 million indoor-outdoor water feature, water park that is going to be part of this. So we're very excited about this, and with the tourism that will be generated from this and from the Little League, we're going to see an increase, an influx of individuals and their families coming to Whitestown, which means our infrastructure is going to be impacted by the increased utilization. So this is an item that will be able to generate revenue from those individuals coming in and utilizing our infrastructure, and also purchasing meals from our eateries. And then we'll be able to use that revenue to fulfill our incentives to the development project, B, to continue to maintain and improve our infrastructure to the high standard that we have come to operate here in Whitestown, and then also see if there are residual incomes, we'll be able to devote those to future projects, which will include items like the beautification and streetscapes in Legacy Core and other parts of town, and also to provide a portion of a local match as we continue to work with NDOT on the exit 130 and the rework that needs to happen there, as we already see record investment from NDOT, over $60 million to create a midpoint interchange and to redo exit 133. We are not going to stop in our efforts to get NDOT to continue to invest in our town and our community while having those improvements on exit 130 right there on the southern part of town. So with that being said, I would like to ask Nathan, who has requested to speak, so that we may give them their opportunity.
So I'll start off. Neil Davis asked to speak in his email. I will unmute if he still wishes to speak.
And please, for the record, your name and address.
Thanks, everybody. Neil Davis, 607 West Pierce, Whitestown. My request to speak may be a little premature because I'm just trying to find some more information about the project, the nature of the tax, and whether we're looking at this as an indefinite tax. From the release that I saw, it was tied into the project itself, but I didn't know if we're looking at an ongoing continuing subsidization of this project, or if we're looking at windows of, is this a 10 or 15-year project? And then we reconsider the tax. And I understand the format may not be a question and answer format, but that's the reason I wanted to come in and just try to gather some information. So with that being said, those questions may get answered as we go through this. I appreciate everybody's time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Davis. We'll go to our next individual on the list to make sure everyone gets a chance to speak, and then we can circle back around. Nathan, who is next on our list?
Curtis Shields. And should be able to unmute now.
Okay.
Click on over here, start video. Start talking. Well,
Are we connected?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Curtis Shields. I live at 209 Hardesty Street here in Whitestown. And I have some questions with regards to the necessity for these taxes in order to provide the incentives for this program. Why are incentives necessary for this proposed project? And can developers proceed with the projects without incentives? And shouldn't the imposition of taxes be considered as a last resort for the financing of incentives? And how long would the tax be imposed?
Any further comments you'd like to add, or just those questions, Mr. Shields?
Those 4 points.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Shields. Nathan, is there anyone else that had requested to speak?
No one else has messaged me at this time requesting to speak.
All right, I'd like to give a little bit of time here in case anyone else that's on the call would like to speak before we move forward. Okay, seeing none, couple of points that I would like to make as far as this is concerned. The question was posed about the length of the tax. This ordinance would establish it, and then it would continue on. And Steve, as our legal counsel, please advise me if I am incorrect in my understanding, but then it would continue on until a council then decides to revoke it, and they would have to go through a certain process to then eliminate that tax. But there would not be a time period in which it would be up for any type of reapproval, even as new councils are elected and sworn in. Is that an accurate statement, Steve?
Correct. Correct.
All right, thank you. And so that's where future councils will be able to have their say as different individuals come together. And that's part of the beauty of our system, is that being in this representative democracy, this republic we have, we're able to elect leaders for short periods of time and then always have that opportunity to either continue to send them back or to send other individuals forward. So I look forward to discussions on that over the long term. When it comes to the other questions about the need for these items, a couple of points that rise is that as I spoke about with the Indianapolis Business Journal, Inside Indiana Business, we had talked about the different developers that had reached out about the Rex project. And with that, they had asked for a number of different items. And as we started looking at the different requests being made, we looked at this particular incentive package, this particular deal that we came to with Homefield. This is the one that had the least amount of risk for the taxpayers, the least amount of buy-in as far as incentives are concerned, and then would provide more to the residents through a larger facility, a discounted rate for residents to operate in the facility that we are negotiating on. And then also the indoor-outdoor water park was something that was never part of of the plans for any developer until this one. It was always something with other items that they were going to build a much smaller venue and then leave the rest of the 120 acres that they didn't need in the project for the town to try to develop and bring forward, and then create from the documents that included items like the water park that had been requested by residents through our conversations with what people were looking for. So that's where, when this one came to us, it was something that, you know, it made sense to us based on how economic development has been operating in the space for the last several years. So that's something that when we looked at it, you know, we were very excited about it. Something that I like to remind people about is that, you know, the town purchased this property from the Mowers, you know, 2 years ago to help to shape and mold the future of it, because it had been sitting there vacant, you know, for decades after the car lot had been shut down. And this is a way that we can turn it from a vacant piece of property into something that is going to go back on the tax rolls. It's going to be providing economic benefit. It's going to be providing residents and real estate to individuals in the town. And it's going to be a vibrant part of the community. And also is going to address any issues that come with the land. So, you know, it's, to me, that's where this deal made the most sense. And it's also a situation when we talk about a food and beverage tax in the, you know, the town of Whitestown, unfortunately, for many years up until, you know, 2018, and even after that, there was a situation where if you came down and you ate at the Starbucks or the Subway, the Dunkin' Donuts, or the Buffalo Wild Wings, you know, you were paying this tax already. It was just being collected, transmitted to the Department of Revenue, and then sent over to Zionsville because of the geocoding and the incorrect nature of how that tax is being allocated and applied. So it's something that many individuals have been paying for years. And that's why when we saw, you know, this deal coming forward, it was an opportunity for us to actually capture that revenue and reinvest it in where it's coming from. And because of the tourism that these properties will bring, the Little League will bring when their tournaments are in town, the lion's share of revenue collected is going to come from people that don't live here. We're going to be able to capture that 1% and invest it here in some of those items I talked about, you know, improving infrastructure. That's roads, that's sidewalks, that's making sure that we have all the necessary items together so that when that traffic flow comes in, it flows well. It doesn't create those backlogs and those jams. That's why I also talked about, you know, making sure that we're investing in exit 130 and keeping NDOT accountable so we can improve that as well. We don't want to have situations where we have too much of a car load. And that's why we've worked on our infrastructure to make sure that is satisfactory. So that's from my perspective on those items. So Nathan, while I've been talking, has anyone else asked from the public to have any more public comments?
No, sir.
All right. Then I would make a motion to close the public hearing. And then when the public hearing is closed, offer an opportunity for council members to chat and discuss the public hearing from that perspective.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on closing the public hearing? Hearing none, Mr. Sumner, please call the roll.
Councilman Worrell,
Yes.
Councilman Miller,
Yes.
Councilman Baum,
Yes.
Councilwoman Austin,
Yes.
Councilman Wishick.
Yes.
All right, public hearing is closed. At this time, as I discussed with council before, I'd like to offer an opportunity for any closing comments from council members, either from questions from the public that were made during the public hearing, or any items that you feel compelled to mention at this time before we adjourn the meeting.
Mr. President, I have a couple questions and comments, if I could. And Nathan, I know you're monitoring this, but you were also involved in the development agreement. So maybe you can help out on a couple of these as well. You had mentioned in the article, Nathan, about this tax versus property tax. Can you elaborate more on that statement that you're making and why this is a good way to go rather than trying to capture some property tax on the development?
Yeah, the reason I went that route and had that discussion is with talk, this is a pay to play kind of tax. This isn't a forcing everyone. And this facility will be a vacuum of bringing people in. And as we've talked, they intend to put hotel, eateries, different places in this site as they develop the Mauer Commons area, which not sure what they'll decide name-wise, but the draw that they do, similar to Grand Park, Finch Creek, and Noblesville, those facilities see a huge spike due to the facility in food and beverage. And that's one of the incentives and why they brought up the food and beverage incentive, is because they want to kind of reap the benefit of what they're bringing to town. And this one hits that versus John Q. Public homeowner being taxed to help pay for this, whether we paid for it from a TIF or property values. And if you look at facilities like the Plainfield Aquatics and Rec Center, Monon Center, or Grand Park, those are all subsidized by various taxing units, not food and beverage. So the residents are paying into those. And when we built this, we wanted a facility that, one, the facility helps pay for, not just a fully town supported and functioned, but the incentive package, they have to bring they have to bring in to see the rewards. So they're buying the bonds on this, they're backing them, and it's being helped paid for by the food and beverage increase that they intend to bring.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. President, you talked about some of the restaurants erroneously collecting and then passing on to the wrong municipality. What safeguards are in place with this ordinance? How will that allow that? How will prevent that from happening when we do have the ordinance in place?
So thanks to the work of town administration staff, they have collaborated with DOR for the last year and a half on this issue to really push DOR to go more for a geotagging instead of just using postal codes, which is one of the underlying issues that led to that. And so as new businesses open and operate, we work with them and connect with them to try and push that. I mean, there are some businesses that are more difficult to get their taxes lined up right, as we talked about Harmony being a brand new opening, a couple months in, and we're working with them on those issues. But as these different restaurants and businesses open, we continue to collaborate with them to make sure that they understand what jurisdiction they're in, what those taxes need to be, coordinating, connecting with DOR on these issues on a quarterly basis to make sure that we're talking with them about these items. So we've gone from more of a reactive to a proactive role in the last couple of years to ensure that we have the proper housekeeping when it comes to the application of these tax rates.
Okay, great. I think overall my comment would be, I agree with Nathan about the voluntary. It's a voluntary tax. You can choose to participate or not. And the good news is all the folks that are going to be benefiting from the amenities that Whitestown brings will also be participating in helping to pay for those as well. So I think that a sales tax can be the fairest tax out there. And as far as when you talk about sunsetting or expiring, I appreciate that question specifically from Mr. Davis and others. I would encourage all the residents to keep the council accountable for other taxes that directly impact the residents and reducing those rather than pushing for the reduction or elimination of this food and beverage tax.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments from council members? All right. Hearing none, I would offer a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Whitestown Town Council.
So moved.
I'll take that as a second. I've got a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on adjourning the meeting? Hearing none, Mr. Sumner, please call the roll.
Councilman Worrell,
Yes.
Councilman Miller,
Yes.
Councilman Baum,
Yes.
Councilwoman Austin,
Yes.
Councilman Wishick.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned. Have a wonderful evening.